comes to order. First item on the agenda is review and recommendation of the McGann Plan of Lots Simple Subdivision. And it's
Chris, you can hit the continue button on your Zoom over there.
Are you going to go first?
Well, let's see. Who is here for the McGann Plan of Lots? You, sir. Come on right up to the microphone.
How you doing? My name's Charles Larzalier. I'm the surveyor for the McGann subdivision. It's a simple subdivision. Amanda McGann is basically splitting off a lot. Her parents own the Miller Residence Trust. And it's located in Hampton and McCandless Townships. So basically, I think I've received 5 review letters so far. So the review has been pretty thorough. One from KLH, 2 from Gateway, 1 from MTSA. There's an environmental review was done on it. Some of the issues that are still pending are she put in for a variance for the frontage width. And I don't know if that's gone through yet. And sewage planning module has been submitted to DEP.
So for the members' background, the plan that we have up on the screen here, I see actually Mr. McGann has just entered the room, so we'll bring him up on Zoom if he has anything to add or you have any specific questions for him. So the interesting thing about this plan is the lot that they're subdividing essentially lays both in Hampton and in McCandless. So what this means is they have to go through both of our planning commissions and any zoning issues that are on the Hampton side, for example, the lot width, the frontage requirement. Theirs are actually more stringent than ours. So as they go through that variance process at Hampton, that will satisfy our requirements over here as well. For our review purposes, there are just a couple formatting issues that were identified in Gateway's review letter, but for the most part, this plan is compliant with our zoning. There are just a lot of moving pieces for the approvals that they need because this lot is both in our municipality and our neighboring municipality. So Mr. Deiseroth, if you had anything that you wanted to add to this one?
RJ, just that I have a letter dated June 24th, 2021. And as you pointed out, there are just some minor issues related to the plan. The applicants indicated that they've submitted the sewage planning module, which is probably the most important thing to make sure that you have sewage for the new lot. And that's about it.
Yeah, Allegheny County ACD reviewed the plan, and I originally had a whole nother page with 2 sets of clauses, one for each township. But they recommended that I combine all the clauses because it was a little redundant. So there's actually a second version of the plan where I addressed a lot of the items from the review letters, and it's going to shrink to 1 page, but basically it's the septic items that really need taken care of and to make sure the variance goes through. So.
And since we do have the applicant here on camera, I'm just going to send him an unmute request. He is our first hybrid attendee. Mr. McGann, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
No, I appreciate you guys taking this
We're
up.
not hearing the sound. I don't know if it's us or you.
Oh.
I could hear him.
Are you able to hear me?
Going on and off. I'm trying to figure out if it's this thing or this thing.
What about now?
Can you please check hit the little arrow on the audio section and check speakers and see if the speakers are on the Blackmagic one.
Yeah, speakers. I have Realtek or Stema System or HDMI extender.
Interesting. So we don't have the other option there. Try HDMI extender and let's see what happens. Okay. Let's have the applicant try to talk one more time.
Sure. Can you hear me now?
All right. We solved it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys putting us on the calendar. I really don't have much else to add other than what has already been stated. We are jointly going through the process with Hampton, and we're excited to, hopefully be moving forward. Appreciate all of your time.
One other item that was on the review letter was a submission of a stormwater plan. But until they get the house plans, they're not going to get the house plans until the subdivision is approved, until they get the loan for the house. So I can't calculate the amount of impervious surface to do the stormwater plan until that takes place.
And at least from McCandless's perspective, I can't speak to whatever Hampton does in their approval process, but for us, we typically do handle single building permit stormwater as, just an on-lot stormwater that gets calculated at the time the building permit is issued. So that's nothing unusual, at least for our purposes.
Is this,
And the home's going to probably be placed in McCandless, correct?
I believe it's going to be in a portion of both.
Really?
Yes.
Wouldn't want to put the one side or the other. It's usually better for tax purposes. You might want to talk to the applicant about that.
Well, that's interesting because one of the comments I got from, I don't know if it was Gateway or KLH, was that they recommended that portion of it be in Hampton Township because utilities are going to be coming from Hampton Township. So I didn't know if that's a hard rule or what, but
I don't see it mentioned in our review letter, so I'm gonna guess that that was the Hampton side.
I think they're
That-
competing.
That's correct. Yeah.
As far as I recall, I remember talking with the applicant about the school district, and I believe they're going to be, aligned with the Hampton side for the school district. So, not sure how that affects the consideration, for where they want to put the house, but that comment was not us.
okay, all right. Is this something that can get conditional approval today, pending the remaining items that are left in review letter?
So it could be recommended to town council on that basis. It would
Okay.
have to come before town council, probably most likely at the July 26th meeting if it moves on today.
Okay.
Would you have everything done by the 26th?
That depends on if everything comes back from DEP.
For our purposes, I mean, it's pretty common for the planning module sewer side for that to be something that's completed after plan approval. Looking at our review letter, I know that there was a revised plan that was submitted, but it hasn't gone through Gateway's full review yet. Looking at our review letter, there's nothing on here that I feel wouldn't be able to be addressed before town council's meeting.
Okay. Comments by planning commission members? Dan?
None.
Sean?
No.
Greg?
No.
Kim, do you have any comments? Okay, well, that was quick. Could I have then a motion to conditionally approve this? Is that,
Just, I'd say recommend condition upon.
they recommend approval conditional upon?
Engineers
Yeah.
issues, but also I think we should condition upon successful process through Hampton as well.
Yeah, it's possible that Hampton may condition their approval upon basically us getting through.
That's
So,
right, that's one of those. yeah.
essentially, once they're both approved, they're okay.
Yeah, their meeting's next week, I believe, or the 12th, I think.
It's not good.
So,
Yeah, I know. But with that, we should do that. We should not approve a plan that Hampton would say no to.
Right.
So just if we condition upon addressing the engineer's review letter as well as Hampton's approval of the same, and that's what we'll recommend to town council
Mhm.
as well.
All right. Can I have a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion to conditionally approve based on the engineer's review letter and Hampton's approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
all right, thank you for your time.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Give you a few seconds to get the next item up.
Yeah. And who do we have here? If we have someone here for the Chesmer consolidation? Aha, there you are, sir. Come
Okay.
on up.
The second item is a review and recommendation of the Chesmer consolidation plan.
And I'll just give a pretty brief background here. I believe that I recall this is one of those bingo lot plans that we've seen before. Bingo lots. So from what I understand, the applicant came in, wanted to do something on his property that required a building and zoning permit, discovered at that point, oh, my property is actually not one single property. We've seen these before, you know, this is a plan requesting to consolidate all of the lots into one. I can confirm that the engineer's review letter has no further comments. Everything is code compliant at this point. If the applicant has anything else to add, you can do it now, sir.
No, this is uncharted waters for me, but I've learned a lot in a short period of time.
You own
And
all
I
three
got
lots
the letter
right
from
now?
Gateway, and I'm pleased with what I read here, I guess.
Okay, you've owned all three lots right now?
Yes, sir, I've owned them for a very long time.
Okay,
The one house we bought in 1981, and I bought the extra lot 9 years later.
okay. Any comments? Greg?
No, I don't have.
Kim, anything on your end? No. Okay. All right, could I have a motion then to recommend approval?
I'll motion to recommend the town council approve the lot consolidation application for the SFR consolidation plan.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's it.
If I may ask, what's the next step?
Yeah, so most likely you will be on the July 26th town council agenda. I believe we've already gotten the review letter back from the county, which is the last step before, you know, we put you on a town council agenda, and everything was okay on that front as well. So that will be the fourth Monday of the month. Meetings start at 7:30. Usually you come up, you know, towards the end of the agenda when it's a new
Okay.
agenda item.
That's July 26th?
Yep.
Oh, maybe that'll be lucky. That's my wife's birthday.
Hey, that'll be a good birthday present for her.
Good.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Next item on the agenda is 2020 Vision Holdings parking lot renovation, 8301 Perry Highway.
I have a rendered plan. Would you like me to set it up for visual or?
Oh, you know what? So right now, because this is this AV system is all new. So I can pull up if it was part of the latest submission.
It was not.
It was not. Okay.
It would just be a hard copy if we,
Yeah, let's do that for now, unless you can connect your computer to Wi-Fi.
So we have to make a motion to accept the application.
Yeah, for those land development ones, we could do that. So that way it's on the clock.
Okay, could we have a motion to accept the application?
This is just while you guys
for
are
review?
setting up. This is an administrative thing. So, okay.
We
Sorry.
have a
Tim.
motion to accept the application for review. This is something new, but it gets us on the clock.
I move to accept the application for review.
I'm not sure what that is.
So technically per our code, I think because that portion of the code was created before we had a planning person, to officially get land development applications on the clock for the state's required review period, we have to accept them formally at the planning commission.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay,
All right, now that that piece of administrative review is out of the way, essentially the reason that this plan is coming before the planning commission is because although frequently these parking lot renovations can just be done by administrative review because there's not enough impervious surface area added to trigger coming before the full planning commission. From what I understand, the parking space striping required to make the additional spaces work has to actually explicitly be approved by town council. This is an alternate configuration that you can use with double striping. So it's just coming through the land development process. From what I understand, there's very minimal, if any, actual square footage of the building area being added. It's really just they're here because they need to get the parking lot renovation approved with this alternate double striping sizing.
are they adding additional space to the parking lot?
There are a few spaces, I believe, and that, yeah, if that's all the background that I have, if you want to take it away.
the existing parking lot looks about like that right now.
Okay,
And Chris, could you hit camera 2, please? Thank you. So from what I understand, the back end spaces essentially with the buffering would be the addition here.
Good evening, I'm Tom Swisher with Ferry and McCarty Gray, landscape architect for the project. I'm representing the applicant, Dr. Mike Hewitt. and his wife Janice are here. 2020 Vision Holdings at 8301 Perry Highway. This is the corner of Perry Highway and Sandal Avenue. The plan north is top of the plan. Driveway to the site comes off of Perry Highway. There's an existing multi-level structure on the site with 6 parking spaces, 5 of the parking regular spaces, and then 1 ADA space existing. Those would all remain. And we propose, actually, initially it was designed as a additional 6 spaces. But because of the comments, we've actually revised it down to 5 extra spaces, which allows for a backup space on the last space. Not infringing on the last space. It's 436 acres, excuse me, 0.436 acres. It's and it's zoned RC, and which requires some side yard buffers. There's another additional commercial property to the north. There's a residential property to the west, and so those require 2 different side yards. The site actually allows for the configuration of the side yards and allows for the landscaping requirements. We actually added the fence along the western perimeter per the side yard requirements, and we've actually added extra landscaping per the off-street parking landscape requirements. So those are a few revisions that have been made since the submission. And as RJ made reference to, we actually did resubmit this morning, or actually this afternoon, with all the comments. There's actually an existing stormwater tank on site. We propose a trench drain across the bottom of all of the new parking to collect all the stormwater. It'll be diverted into a sump, which is basically an underground infiltration bed. And that's an extra little bump out that we had to do to accommodate the 24-foot drive aisle around the parking spaces. So that sump, then the water would go through the sump, and then the sump would be tied into the existing storm system, and it would flow out through that way. The stormwater has been revised and was resubmitted today per the comments. As you made reference, there is going to be a small addition to the building. It's just an outdoor porch. It's about 150 square feet, plus or minus. There's going to be, the ADA space is going to be improved slope-wise, plus the entranceway to the front door will be improved. It'll be an ADA accessible entranceway. There's existing sidewalks on the property along Perry and partially up along Sandal. We don't intend to change the entranceway at all. The site distances would remain as they are today. One of the comments, we actually added the site triangles per the comment. Basically, besides adding the extra parking spaces, there's retaining walls that basically have to go around all the additional parking spaces. Those will all be under 4 feet tall, which doesn't require engineering. And we also are bringing on a geotech for a geotech report and geotech analysis of the site. One of the other comments was the rear setback and side yard setbacks. The existing building already currently sits within the side yard setback off of Sandal and off the rear side yard setback. It was already an existing condition, so that's one of the open questions. We don't believe we're really changing anything that would, we aren't making it any worse than it already exists today. And the parking requirements, we did the calculations for, even though it's a optometrist, the one floor is going to be an optometrist office. It really acts more like an accounting office, kind of like an accountant. Everyone is scheduled. There's only 1 or 2 patients there maximum at a time. So we felt the office space, 1 per 300 square feet is a better calculation than using the doctor office calculation. And per the square footage of the optometrist office and the floor below, we actually come right at 11 spaces. So that allowed for the turning spot to be for the 11th parking space. was about all I wanted to kind of touch on with questions.
I had a quick question. What is that beige area down in the lower left?
Here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually an existing concrete pad that was there already on site. I think there might have been a garage there at one time. Yeah, we believe there might have been a small garage structure on that at one time. It's like basically a small parking pad for about 2 cars. Right now, we were intending just to leave it as is. Doesn't seem to be, it would give the opportunity to maybe pull a car up in there if we needed to once in a while.
RJ, you have any comments?
I know that there's been a revised plan resubmitted. We just haven't had the chance to do a full, review of the formatting and all the other changes. I doubt that there's going to be anything particularly material that would change based on this plan from the revisions, because most of these comments are not anything really concerning, at least from what I'm looking at. Mr. Dizeroth, if you had anything that you wanted to add?
Mr. Swisher did a great job of sort of summarizing what our comments were. And we'll have to get a look at the revised plans, but I concur with RJ that the changes were not that significant. And I think they at least verbally addressed them at this point.
We have not received comments from the county yet, so.
Right, yeah, I think they have up to 45 days, so, it's up to the planning commission whether you want to take action tonight. Because none of the comments were particularly concerning to me, I have it slated up for a motion. It would not be considered for approval of town council until all of the remaining comments on this letter were addressed and until we got the review, any comments, if there are any, back from the county.
Planning commission members, Dan, you have any questions?
No, so our approval, should we go that way, is conditioned upon all these other events occurring.
Yeah, I'd recommend similar to the first one with the condition on the engineer's letter.
No question.
No questions.
Greg? Just a couple quick things. The sidewalks that you show, are they existing?
They are.
What about the sidewalk going down Sandal?
That currently does not exist right at this time.
This is a commercial property, correct?
It is, yeah.
So that would
It's
be
RC.
required?
I would have to take a look at whether it was waived originally. That would be my assumption. Because there's not an actual change to the building aside from a porch awning, I hadn't considered it being, something that would break the nonconformity. But if that's something the group's concerned about, we can certainly take a look.
I think we ought to check it just to make sure. The problem with all this is that if somebody wants to continue a lot or a sidewalk in the future, it's if we don't put one in, it doesn't make any sense.
Is there any reason that you can think of off the top of your head? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but is there any reason that you wouldn't be able to extend that sidewalk to the property line?
Sandals, not the flattest street, but there's sidewalks that are on slopes that Sandal is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. So I'm not seeing the drawing, but you're saying up to where that old garage
Yeah, they
had been?
they want to add sidewalk here.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that.
Okay. The only other question I had, I guess, again, is procedural. You were saying that you wanted to use the general office requirements for parking rather than medical office requirements.
Correct.
Would you need a variance for that?
I'd have to take a look at the code more specifically, but from what I understand, there's a stipulation that if there is a good case for, why essentially the parking requirements set forth in the zoning ordinance aren't really, they don't quite apply for some sort of special circumstance, like for example, this is all accounting rather than actual patient, patient exam rooms, then they can basically put a demand study together that at the discretion of council can be approved.
Basically from operational standpoint, it's one doctor at a time and up to 1 to 2 patients an hour. There's really not much overlap between patients.
Is there any other people in this building with any other businesses?
The bottom floor, so the optometrist office is going to go on the second floor. There's a basement level. He intends to possibly rent that out It's a little smaller in square footage. Basically, the optometrist office would account for 6 spaces and the rental space down below would be 5 spaces.
I'd have to take a look at the exact square footage and just depending on what the use would be for the future renter, but that's something that's typically handled at the occupancy permit level, not necessarily the land development level, if it's a space that's flex.
We ran that as office, business office as well.
Well, I think you just need to check it, that's all. Okay, I don't have anything else. Anybody else?
A quick question, since the number of spaces is somewhat in question, if for whatever reason, whoever goes in the space to be rented out has greater traffic flow, is there any kind of overflow? Where would an extra car or 2 or 3 park if it had to?
If we had to do something, we could possibly do something up in this area off of Sandal. That would be, it's basically built out right now as shown here.
Remind me what's to the left of this property?
That's actually residential.
Okay.
About down Perry Highway, what is down here?
Down this way?
Yeah.
This is mostly wooded on going south from your property. This is all wooded. This is this is a beauty salon, an auto parts store, Howard Hanna.
This used to be the photography studio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry. I should have said that at the beginning.
I got you now. I know where it is now.
Yeah.
We, as RJ, basically the rental thing would come in, I believe, at building permit time. So, the parking requirements would come into, because right now with 11 spaces, we're actually over what we really need for the optometrist office itself.
This building is a basement plus 2 stories, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
The third floor is residential.
Okay.
And there's actually driveway here with an integral garage into the building.
Okay.
And that's why the building looks bigger than actually the square footage that is calculated for the use, because the garage takes up this whole back portion.
Okay. Any other comments, Kim?
Nothing from me.
Okay. Is there a motion? Let's see what we got here.
If you do approve, I'd suggest the contingency being to add the sidewalk going up top.
Okay, I would guess then that our motion would be to recommend the town council to approve the preliminary final land development application with the condition that the sidewalk is extended down Sandal.
I'll move.
Is there a second? All in favor? Opposed? Okay.
And just to confirm really quickly, Dan, you were the first on that, right? And then you were the
Yes.
second. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is Steel City Billboards Land Development Site Plan. Proposing a static billboard at the intersection of Vestal Park Lane and Perry Highway.
All right, come on up, gentlemen, and I do have all of the latest materials that you have been sent through the email, so if you want me to pull up anything specific, if you happen to remember the file name, we can go that way, but I can also just guess at what you're describing.
As of right now, probably the easiest would just be the site plan or revised site plan. June.
And Christine, for now, let's switch to camera 3. Oh, perfect, you already got it. All right, we're getting good at this. So you said site plan first.
Site
right?
plan, yes, that'll be fine.
Can I just say, are these microphones getting to the back? Yeah. Yeah, I see a no and I see a yes. Okay.
Yeah, you have to.
It doesn't seem like it to me. So that's fine. It was just-
We'll speak closer to the microphone.
Hey, there we go. That works. It seems to work for town council based on what we've tried out so far, but in the room, it sounds quieter than it records. Okay, so you said site plan.
Yes.
Let's see if I pulled up. Oh, there's a revision. Okay, let's try that instead. There we go. And just while I am pulling this up for the Zoom, for some background, we have certainly discussed this plan before in general. This is the conditional use application that was discussed, I think, for a couple months prior. This is the land development side of that. So essentially, the conditional use is pending before town council. They had requested to bump the hearing date, the public hearing date for the conditional use back so that it could be considered in tandem with the land development application. This is that piece of this whole approval process. As a refresher, it is a static billboard as I've been defining it, which essentially means it's not something that's electronic, it's not digital, the copy doesn't change. It's just whatever they put up at any given time. Specifically in our conditional use code, it does limit these types of billboards to being a static billboard, which is why that's been mentioned on the agendas and material related to it. I don't think I have anything to add since we've talked about this before.
Just review with us how big this billboard is.
Sure. First of all, my name is Brian Almeida with the firm of Farringer McCarty Gray, representing the applicant, Pittsburgh Outdoor Properties LLC. They're also in the audience if you have any direct questions of them.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry, Brian. Before
Sure.
we move on, because this is the first time we've seen the land development portion of this application, we do want to do that administrative motion before we proceed.
All right. Could we have a motion to accept the application for review?
Make a motion to accept the application for review.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Yes. So as Ms. Husko mentioned, this has been discussed at the conditional use meetings with the Planning Commission. The plan is essentially stayed as is. The freestanding sign, static sign is the sign itself is 10 feet wide by 20 feet high, and it's 8 feet off of the ground. So the application really has not changed since the conditional use. We've just added some additional items on the site plan that is displayed here. That's sort of check boxes specific to the site plan approval process and site plan checklist that the township has required us to do. I don't know if you want me to go through the rest of the
Whatever
package,
you would like
but
to
yeah,
present, I can
yeah.
pull up.
Well, just in general and for the record, I guess, because this is a quasi different approval. The parcel is located at Vestal Lane. It's tax parcel 944A22, zoned C3, and contains a little over 1,002 square feet of area. As shown on the plan, the lower side of the property is Vestal Lane. To the right is the sort of the off ramp of Perry Highway, and up above toward the top of the sheet is Perry Highway itself. The site plan application was submitted in early June. And as mentioned, on Township Council for public hearing for the conditional use and site plan if Planning Commission recommends it. We received comments from Gateway Engineers on June 24th. We have addressed those. Basically, we understand that it's an advertising or static sign and it's conditional use. The site plan has been revised, which is on the screen again, to actually note the specific zoning hearing board variances that were granted by the Township Zoning Hearing Board. The plant list has been revised to match the plan view. And the fourth one was any additional comments that the township may have. We resubmitted those and received a second comment letter, basically just having the conditional use understanding as well as the additional township comments. So I think we're at that point if the commission wants to make a
In
recommendation.
my lingo, I would refer to that at this point as a plan review letter.
Yeah, right. So if there's any questions of the Planning Commission, we'll be glad to answer any of those and hopefully move forward.
Do you have anything to add?
I don't.
Okay.
I've covered everything, I think.
Dan, anything to add?
Nothing.
Oh.
The other
Which
Dan?
Dan?
The other Dan?
I'm good. My letter is clean. They've addressed all the comments.
Comments? Greg?
No.
Kim? Well, it seems like everything has been taken care of. Can we then have a motion to recommend town council approve the preliminary and final land development application to construct an advertising sign submitted by Steel City Billboards?
I'll move to approve the sign as submitted.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Okay, you're good.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
All right, well, we're getting everybody up here that should be up here for the next one. We can do the administrative motion.
Oh, this, okay.
Yeah.
The next item on the agenda is the McCandless Square Phase 2 retail. The first thing we have to do is have a motion to accept the application for review. Could we have that motion, please?
I'll move to accept it for review.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Who will be presenting this?
All right. Jerry, I'm guessing that's you. We haven't actually met in person yet.
It's been a while.
All right, and I know we've got Kevin Doherty on the microphone here.
Yeah. We also have Todd Pfeiffer as well from
Yes.
MSRPLP.
You can, unless you want to be standing up, you can sit. All right, so I sent Kevin a mic and camera request. Kevin, I think I can, if you're not able to mute and unmute yourself, I'll fix that if that's a problem. But otherwise, just wave, I suppose, if you get muted and don't want to be. So Kevin is joining us from North Carolina, I think. One of the wonderful things of this hybrid format is we can have a couple different people here and a couple different people somewhere else. So just as a quick introduction, I understand that this project predates me by a bit, at least the phase 1 in the concept plan of this development. But for those who aren't familiar with McCandless Square, it is, I believe, the former, let's hope I get this right, Trader Horn?
Yep.
Yes, all right. All right. It is the former Trader Horn site, just a little bit down the road. Phase 1 was the Continental Senior Living Facility, which is nearing completion, I believe. Phase 2 is the retail portion, which is the northernmost portion of the property. This is, survived so far, survived COVID. They're back at it and ready to present the latest that they've got. Did I get that right?
That's it. Yep.
All right. So I should have everything that you've sent over loaded up here. If I need to download anything, no worries. I recall that you sent me a presentation slide for earlier today, right?
Yes.
Okay. You want me to pull that up?
Well, do we want to do the subdivision part first?
Oh, it's up to you, really. You're the
Yeah,
one
that's-
presenting.
That's
so.
simple enough. So we brought up the subdivision plan. We talk about that first because that's the first comments on Gateway's letter.
Just a moment here.
Okay,
What we want?
that's it.
All right.
So my name's Jerry Klodowski. I'm with Civil and Environmental Consultants. We are the consulting engineers for the project for MSRPLP. The subdivision plan you see here, originally the site was about 24 acres. When Continental came through and did their subdivision plan, they consolidated the 3 lots that were there. We re-subdivided into 3 additional lots. This subdivision actually takes lot 1, and subdivides it into 3 separate lots. The idea behind that is to keep a portion of it for the retail center, and then there's also going to be a sale for a daycare portion of it, and then potentially future townhome portion, which is not part of the application. So that was the whole point of subdividing the property. There were some comments on the Gateway letter regarding setbacks. The only setbacks we showed are along Blazer Drive and the exterior property lines. As part of the master plan approval, we are not required to provide setbacks on interior lot lines. So we do not show any setbacks on those lot lines. We do show that there was a sidewalk missing along Blazer Drive. That has been shown on the revised subdivision plan, so that'll appear when we resubmit it. There's also a comment about 20-foot wide storm sewer easements to be shown on the plan. After discussion with Gateway's office, all of the access easements, utility easements, and stormwater easements will be addressed with a reciprocal easement agreement between all three properties, because there's going to be utilities that pass through all three of them. So we're going to wrap them all up into one. I don't know if there's any other questions.
That's a specific requirement of the stormwater ordinance, Jerry. That's why that was in there. So
Yeah.
we covered in reciprocal easements, that'll be fine.
Okay. Okay. Now we can go to the, I'm sorry. That's it for the subdivision, yeah.
RJ?
On the subdivision plan, no, I don't have any comments at this time. Everything that's within Gateway's comment letter.
Any comments by the planning commission members? Dan?
No.
John? Greg?
No.
Yep. Okay, all right,
Okay. Now on to land development.
there we go.
All right, let's see here. I've got LD submission, which does not look like a large enough file. Aha, here we go. Retail drawings. All right, you just tell me what page you want us to be on.
You can go to C200.
C200. We want to see 300.
There you go.
Oh, this is what you wanted?
Yeah, you can keep that one up for now.
Okay.
So I think what I want to do is I just want to go through, what we're doing with the plan, what was done previously, what this project entails. And I think there's probably about 5 comments on the Gateway letter that are significant that we would like to address. A lot of the other ones are just some housekeeping items that we need to clean up in the letter. So as RJ indicated, that this project is a piece of a larger project that came through McCandless in 2019. The overall project is approximately 24 acres. And when we came in initially with the assisted living and the cottage homes, we developed a master plan that incorporated this retail portion of the project. So now that the assisted living and the cottage homes are underway, MSRP LP decided, it's time to move into this retail portion of it. So what we have is approximately 28,300 square feet of retail/commercial use. The building that is on the right-hand side is intended to be a 10,000 square foot daycare center. All of the daycare tenants will basically show up early in the morning, loop through the parking lot, drop off, and then leave the development. The parking for that can be handled by the parking that's along Mill Street in front of the buildings, and then the parking lot that we have behind the building itself. The other larger L-shaped building is a 16,500 square foot retail and restaurant building. There's going to be a brew pub type establishment in there and other food amenities for the residents of this whole development. All of the utilities are existing. There's water lines out front along Mill Street that are going to connect up to these buildings. They've all been sized and developed to incorporate this into the project. Sanitary sewer is also out in Mill Street. The only utilities that we're really adding is that run of storm sewer that runs along the back of the building to the right side, and then there's a run that goes through the left side. All of the stormwater was previously handled with the original development, and we submitted a letter that basically justifies that we have less impervious area than what we had originally planned. Therefore, the stormwater still is in compliance with the McCandless ordinance. Sanitary sewer is going to be, we're adding one stick to the side of the building to handle a grease trap. That still needs to be coordinated with MTSA. We did send in a revised sewage exemption letter to the sewer authority, and they have approved it. It's just a matter of sending it back through DEP. So
Want me to pick any other pages forward?
if, it's really up to you. If I don't know if anybody has any questions about the site plans.
Your daycare, child daycare, I
Mhm.
presume.
Yes.
I want to see the landscape plan, I'm sure.
Just trying to figure out how best to navigate through this thing. Hey, okay.
There you go.
There we go. So you said you wanted to see the landscape.
Yeah, it should be
right?
700.
Right. Does that cover the extent that you'd want to look at?
Sure.
Okay.
You want to go through that for us?
Basically, we're meeting the requirements of the ordinance. I'm not a landscape architect, but it does meet all of the requirements for the landscaping ordinance. There's several trees along Blazer Drive that would provide a buffer. Looks like there's some deciduous trees and then some low level plantings closer to the parking lot. Looks like we have some shade trees in the parking lot with some shrubs as well. There's some shade trees along the front, along Mill Street as well. So there's no shortage of landscaping.
Is that a paved area in front of this on Mill Street, in front of your L-shaped building?
Yes, that's intended to be patio area for outdoor seating because both of those two units on the end there are going to be a food establishment. So it allows for some outdoor seating as well.
If you don't mind, I'm just gonna pull up the rendering
Mhm.
image because I think that
Yeah.
illustrates it pretty well.
Where's your dumpster?
It's almost off the page there to the left.
Oh, all the way to the top left?
Yeah.
Side left. Right there, yeah.
I think my Adobe Acrobat is a little upset that I've tried to pull up so many large plans. Let me see, maybe the arch renderings one is the one that I want here. Aha, all right. That gives you a better idea
Yeah.
of what they would be doing with the patio area.
And it sort of follows the same color scheme that the existing assisted living and cottage homes with the white siding.
And then here's
And
just the, oh,
Wanna
you want to
go
go back to that? Sure.
that's the elevation that is facing the large building.
Yes.
Okay. Where will people be entering these retail from?
These will actually they'll have double frontages, so they'll be able to enter from either side.
Because I see parking on the, what I call the backside toward Blazer Drive.
Right.
And wouldn't that be the primary place people would enter from?
Not necessarily. If folks from the assisted living or the cottages choose to visit this, chances are they're going to walk up through the front.
Okay.
But you're right, most people that are going to come in here to park will most likely park behind the building and enter that way. But there are parking spaces, about 40 parking spaces that have been designated for this use along Mill Street there in the front. So all of the parking for the assisted living, the cottage homes, there's ample parking elsewhere excluding these spaces. So these spaces can be used solely for this development.
Where's the main entrance for the daycare? Is that in off of Mill Street?
We're not sure where it's going to be yet, but we believe it's going to be along, I guess it's along the west face where there's right along that side. And from what I understand, and Kevin, you can interrupt me, we believe that what's going to happen because of security protocols with the daycare will actually bring an employee outside to meet the child so that there's no additional clearances that parents would need to enter the facility. So a daycare worker will come out, pick up the child, take them back into the daycare.
That's correct, Jerry.
So it sort of alleviates the idea that somebody's going to be parking there long term or even short term for that matter. They're basically stopping, dropping off, and then going.
How many kids will be involved in the daycare?
I believe it's 180 to 200, Ted.
Okay.
lot of dropping off and picking up.
I am delighted to see the garage doors. That was a great idea, right, Kevin?
Your influence the last few months has made it to our architect.
Thank you. We need a lot of outdoor seating on those beautiful days here in McCandless. So thank you for opening that up to the nice green space that you have there. I was comparing it, so I think that's a great addition. I like this plan. I like what you're doing with the food court. You know, we had talked about, you know, being able to get different types of food. Different people and families don't always want to eat the same thing. And I think this is a great idea. It certainly is catching on everywhere. So I'm so glad to see some of that coming to McCandless. So I'm comparing this with, I have a lot of plans here, the previous plan, and what some of the previous plans had another entrance and an exit centrally that kind of went through where that 2,400 retail space is. So am I seeing that there's like kind of one way in? Is this two ways? It looks like one way in, one way out.
No, there's actually a driveway here just on the west side of the food hall that is two-way traffic, and then on the other side, there's two-way traffic.
But there's only two entrances off Blazer.
Correct.
Okay, but every one of these roads go both ways. Okay, because we lost another whole exit.
Yeah, I think the plan you're looking at was a very preliminary plan, and topographically, that center entrance didn't work. There's the high point in Blazer Drive is right at the pinnacle of the curve. So that's the highest point, and we would end up with, it was something like a 15 or an 18-foot vertical drop to get down into the development. So we eliminated that pretty early on.
I did also notice that, and of course, this I'm comparing all of these. I noticed that some of parking took up some of that nice central green space too. That was all originally green space there. Do we need all of that parking? One of my favorite things about this plan is it was going to be like 40% green space or something like that. Have we been able to maintain that ratio?
Yes.
With all the changes
Yes.
that we've made? So 40%?
It's, I don't know if it's 40%, I can get you the exact number, but we've actually, as one of my little notes I have here, we actually added with this development a half an acre of additional green space. So
in a different place.
Right, it's spread out a little bit differently, right?
I'm just trying to compare apples and oranges here to see what's been changed. So those were my two questions. I just want people to be able to get in and out.
That's good. This large piece of property to the, I guess it'd be southwest. What is the projection on that?
This green space here?
Yep.
Right now, it's slated for townhomes potentially, if that works out. We are still early on in that plan.
I can add a little bit to that. The townhomes in that green area called Lot 1, and then down below in Lot 3, there's 21, I believe, that could fit in Lot 1, and I believe 38 that could fit in Lot 3. Be very similar in context to the townhomes that were done at McCandless Crossing, and not necessarily the exact same square footage or look, but the way McCandless Crossing were 53, and it was integrated into the mixed use development. And the plan here was to do the same thing.
Those properties are also in McCandless Crossing are very popular. Many people are waiting for properties to come available there, so they do seem to be very popular. People like this this mixed use development. This is the trend, and I think especially the younger people really like this.
And I will say from the very preliminary discussions that we've had, it looks like it's going to be a very attractive type of townhome. So assuming that continues, to the point where they're ready to bring it to the planning commission and then to town council, I think to achieve some of the setback permissions that you have in the C5 district, they would just have to do a master plan amendment, which could be considered at the same time as the land development application. So that is TBD on the horizon, but I think there's a potential to, for that to work really well with what they've got here tonight. I'm just going to throw out there. I think that maybe the first time that I met Kevin at my hire meeting, I said, "So are you going to get us a brewery?" And he said, "Well, actually, I'm working on something." And so this whole thing here is, I think, a culmination of that. And as our council president mentioned, I think that the open doors and everything that's going to work out really nice. So I'm excited to see that one survive.
I have a couple of questions, comments, I suppose. I'm concerned about the view or the elevation from Blazier. I think that what I'm seeing, if I'm looking at the right south elevation, I think that's quite an attractive look. But people traveling on Blazier are going to get less attractive look. They're going to see the back, essentially the back of the building. It appears to me as the back of the building. Is there any way that can be improved? I don't want to repeat what I call the McCandless crossing blank wall look that you get going up and down McKnight. So is there some way aesthetically that I think that the back of this, which is what everybody's going to see that travels along Blazier, so that they get a better view other than a large blank wall, which is trash receptacle, and then, in my view, a much blanker, less attractive look.
Well, you're talking about dumpster enclosures and trash operations, that it's difficult to make that look attractive in any setting. I will say that, you know, at McCandless Crossing, we did use similar dormers and tried to paint, you know, storm piping and utility lines in a color that blended into the walls, and tried, frankly, to hide some of it with some landscaping. This does not reflect, these are architectural renderings and don't reflect what landscaping there might be near the building that hopefully can send your eye towards that versus, you know, light poles that might have, you know, our banners and things of that nature that, you know, would hopefully draw your attention as opposed to the service areas.
Keep in mind, those doors that are shown there, they're glass doors. They're not just metal doors. That's what I was looking at it quickly, and that's the feel I got too, that they were going to be metal doors, but they are going to be glass.
Well, also the roof look with the various, I forget, I can't think of what those-
Dormers and
yeah, all the dormers, which I assume are cosmetic, although I don't know. As they are looking inward, is it possible to add something like that, although cosmetic, as it looks out toward Blazier? I would like to have the impression from Blazier to be a very attractive looking building, not the back of the building.
And that picture right there is the back of the building there with the dormers on.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are two. It's a much different look from the one elevation to the next, in my opinion.
RJ, the back one.
Is that the one?
Yeah, that's the front there. So, okay, so you're referring to the triple window dormers
The
as
triple
opposed to
windows,
just the
there's
singles.
More of it, and breaks up the roof line significantly.
Jerry, what's the height differential when you're traveling up on Blazier Drive versus the finished floor elevation at,
Yeah, it's significant. It's 15 to 18 feet at the high point.
so you're 15 to 18 feet higher on Blazier Drive than this building?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I certainly understand what you're saying, but we also have to consider where the audience is, and playing to the town green is kind of the center of activity is something that, you got to create synergy around. My hope is that you'll be seeing at the roof line and up, but certainly we can look at, if there's some dormer additions beyond what's there. We'll certainly take that into account.
Thank you.
Sure.
John?
I just wanted that environmental impact overlay that I sent. This is kind of the same area. I don't know if this was
Yeah.
impacted by that or.
So from what I understand, it would be more the site towards Pine Creek if they were actually building, much closer to that, or maybe more towards the west. From what I understand, there hasn't been anything additional that they've had to, it's been discovered that they would have. It's an interesting thing that my laptop just did. Sorry. Anyway, from what I understand, there isn't an additional phase 2 study is what they generally refer to it for this property required. I wasn't here when they did the original master plan, so I'm not sure if that was something that, maybe whether you all remember if that came up or if Mr. Dizeroff has anything to add about this.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
Kevin, he was asking, there was a group of students from the University of Pittsburgh that took a look at the site, I think maybe in concert with when they were doing the comp plan. Does that sound right? When they were looking at redevelopment of the site. And so those students had identified that there might be environmental concerns due to what was on the site before. And so Mr. Hall is inquiring as to whether there needed to be any further environmental assessments or if there were any concerns in that regard.
Not to my knowledge. I mean, there was an environmental phase 1 and phase 2, and those were completed.
That's unless you have, essentially a toxic waste site, that's about as far as it really has to go with the environmental impact studies. Is that correct?
Yeah, the fact that they're constructing residential on the site means that it was cleared for residential construction, and that's the highest constraint that there is. So commercial would be less of a constraint.
Anything else from anybody? Greg?
I do have one more.
You have a couple.
And I'm not sure how this was resolved, RJ, because you and I had some conversation in the last few days. And this has to deal with when we were first looking at this property, we had proposed and had given agreement to a path to be between the large residential building, the 3-story building, and the creek. And this was going to be a path for the public to use and part of the overall trail system in and around McCandless that we had proposed in our comprehensive plan. Is that still being planned, and what is the status of it?
While we're talking, I'm just going to bring up the approved plan from that you and I were taking a look at. And
Yeah, the trail's going to be constructed as part of the senior living development.
Right.
And that trail will extend from, as you can see it there, it extends from the far west property line. We stopped it where we did, not at the property line, because there is a grade differential there. But it will extend up to the last cottage home and then tie into the sidewalk system that goes out to Blazer Drive.
Okay, and at the time, we didn't know what was going to be developed over to the right-hand side of this depiction. And so that's, as I remember it, that's the reason we put that J curl on the path to bring it back to the sidewalk so that they could then, whoever was on the path, could then walk up to Blazer Drive along the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and this, I'm mixing and matching here with the Pascal House. When Pascal House wanted to build their property there, doesn't that tie into the Pascal House property? And when we talked to Pascal House, why wouldn't we continue that path now across Pascal House up to Blazer Drive instead of doing that little J curl and terminating it?
Well, the reason we curled it like that is because the original plan was, as you indicated, to follow around the stormwater pond on the embankment of the stormwater pond and then eventually up to Blazer Drive. Well, what the issue is, there's a floodplain associated and a floodway associated with Pine Creek.
Right.
And the breastwork of our dam encroaches in that floodway. So the discussions we had with DEP and the Conservation District was, if you're going to put a trail on there and improve that surface, then we would have to come in for a 105/404 permit to permit that section of the path that occurs within the floodway. And at the time, we all agreed it doesn't make sense to wait on a permit for 1.5 years to get that to happen. It makes more sense to just keep it up into the development and continue it on. And the discussions that we had back then with Bruce was that, this whole project, what we wanted to do was bring people that are walking down this trail, walking down Blazer on their way to North Park. We want all of those residents to come into the development. We want them to use the town green. We want them to use these retail developments. So we want them to come into the park. I don't know if you remember the discussion about the sidewalk along Blazer Drive, because we originally didn't have a sidewalk along Blazer Drive because the idea was we wanted to bring people into our development so that they could use those amenities that we're putting in. Similar with the trail, we wanted to do the same thing.
In fact, I think we even talked about making the sidewalk that this path terminates into even a bigger sidewalk than a standard sidewalk, so that it could accommodate more people. I don't know whatever came of that, but that made sense. If you've got people who are either riding bicycles or walking dogs or whatever on the path, if they are then funneled down to a 4-foot wide sidewalk, I thought I remembered the discussion being that might be problematic. But I thought that the reason it wasn't continued was because we didn't know what was going to be developed in that property to the right. Now we think we know. Is there no other way to continue that path along property and not sidewalks to get it up to Blazer Drive? Get it away from the DEP problematic area?
Well,
is there another way to get through there?
Not really, because you're bound by the stormwater pond. Those hatchings are wetlands, and in between our pond and that large wetland on the right-hand side, there's actually a stream that comes down from Blazer Drive. So all of those are considered impacts to the environment, which would require extensive permitting, a lot of time, a lot of money. So again, that's why we looped it into the development.
And I'm not speaking for Jerry, but when you make application for those permits, you're not necessarily even guaranteed that they'll approve it.
Absolutely not.
Make an application. So I think what I recall was, Bruce, we knew that was a thing that would work for now, and would avoid those issues, and we would have that connectivity
right
at that point in time. But that's what I recall. I mean, you have a valid point, but it's just, as you can see, I'm just showing them the passport plan, how much there is. And
it gets tight. I agree.
Yeah, there's a lot of wetlands, a lot of floodway, a lot of floodplain, streams.
And none of this path that is shown on this plan is in that same flood plan?
No, it's outside of it.
They're up on the elevator above.
Yeah, it's interesting. Our frontage of Pine Creek there is fairly steep. So the floodway is lower down. And then as soon as you get by our stormwater pond there, the topography sort of flattens out, and that's when the floodway sort of widens out a little bit. And it's the same prior to our site as well.
Then I go back to my comment about the sidewalk. Are we going to be funneling people into a sidewalk that may or may not be able to accommodate them?
Well, the sidewalk's a 5-foot sidewalk all the way over to Blazer, and that's what is on the other side of Blazer as well. So I would imagine if anybody's on a bike, they should stay on the roadway and then let the pedestrians use the sidewalk.
I never see bikes on sidewalks.
I hope not.
They like the road. I'll run them over.
I don't know. Kids on little bikes and trikes, they would use the sidewalk. Everything.
Right.
And I'm disappointed in that development, frankly, but I understand what you're saying, because we had a lot of discussion about where we could take this path and that it would get itself all the way to North Park. And now we're not getting to North Park. We're having to stop. We're making an alternative route through a concrete pathway.
Yeah.
It's not the same, in my opinion.
Can't they go through McKenna's Drive? Is that coming to play at all here?
Further down.
It would, I was thinking that the path would eventually wind around and get very close to McCandless Drive, and then continue to across McCandless Drive and further on.
I mean, the very best we could have ever done was to bring it just around that stormwater pond and connect it right back up to approximately where it was anyhow. And we don't control the next property. And our property, even though it does extend down to the set of culverts that go underneath of Blazer Drive, that's, again, it's our floodway, floodplain, stream. So we wouldn't have been able to just straight through to it anyhow.
And Dan, there's some property on the other side of that creek. So just stay tuned.
Okay. I'm a big proponent of the pathway system.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see it get fragmented and segmented.
Mhm.
I just, going back to that daycare, the entrance on the side. If there's like 180 to 200 kids having to walk down and a employee coming out to meet them, that's, it sounds like all kinds of problems, especially with, families that have multiple kids, different ages, they're gonna go to different places, and people aren't gonna just like be willing to sit in their car waiting for one employee to come out.
Well,
maybe that.
Keep in mind, it's not going to be one employee. It'll be several employees. The fact of the matter is, it's not going to be folks parking for long periods of time and having to walk their kids in, chit-chatting with the people that work there. It's going to be very regimented. They'll stop, someone will come out, they'll pick up their kid, take them in. And, granted, they're not going to have 180 kids at one time. It's going to happen over a series of hours in the morning.
I mean, is there a way to, I've seen, I've sent my son to a number of different places where it ranges from fingerprint scanning or like a code that punch in, you just go into the main office or there's someone there that buzzes you in and go to the room. I don't know if maybe having a door that's a little more accessible to the parking spot as opposed to walking.
I can comment on that, Jerry. We have Doodlebugs, which is a 14,000 square foot, 2-story facility over in McCandless Crossing. They accommodate 225 children with their program. Most of the kids arrive between 6:30 in the morning till 9 o'clock, depending on their schedules, and most are gone by 6:30 in the evening. They do have some after-school programming. They do have the retina scan and the fingerprint, and I suspect that when we get into the further development of this building, these folks will have the same security measures and the same pickup and drop-off procedures that they've worked with over at Doodlebugs. And Doodlebugs is actually a larger facility and more children, and it's really, we have not had any issues over there. It's worked well.
Yeah, so like Doodlebugs, it's a 2-story facility and you go and you punch your code. And I would walk my son to the different room on the second floor as opposed to an employee coming out to meet me, especially when you're taking lunches and if you have multiple kids, there's different drop-offs. I maybe personally, I think a system where the parent goes in would be much more accommodating to everyone's schedule than an employee coming out.
Absolutely. Before pre-COVID, absolutely. Now they're taking so many more precautions with trying to eliminate as many people in the building that could do any kind of transferring or anything like that. That's the main reason why they're going to the drop off by the car system.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't our idea. So I think it's something that's probably going to evolve and change, as they develop this facility, and frankly, as culture adjusts to the next wave of how we're doing meeting and greeting one another.
On that same issue, how tight is your parking on this plan? Do you have excess spaces in case you needed to take some away from the front of the daycare center?
Well, that, I was actually going to talk about that after everybody had their questions in. I have three comments on the gateway letter that are significant that I think we should talk about. So I guess we can segue into that then, since I don't think there's any other questions.
Are there any particular plan sheets you want me to pull up?
Yes, the new one.
Are you expecting to be using the full land development set at all? Because if not, I'm going to close it to save my computer a little bit.
Yeah, you can close it.
Okay. All right.
We can talk about the rest of the comments based on this plan. So what this plan represents, one of the comments on Gateway's letter was relative to the retaining wall that we showed along Blazer Drive. The wall varied from, I think it was like 6 or 7 feet up to a maximum of 12 feet, where Blazer Drive peaks at elevation and then comes back down again to another 7-foot wall. The grading ordinance requires that there be a buffer in front of the wall that's 2 times the height of the wall that basically would encroach upon our parking area. So what we did is we stepped back and we said, okay, well what can we do to fix this issue? So what we did is we just ran some 2-to-1 grading from the property line area down to the parking lot to see how it would impact our parking. With the original plan, we had 147 parking spaces. With this plan, we have 141 parking spaces. So in general, the parking does not conform to the ordinance requirements. However, Kevin is actually having a traffic engineer prepare a parking study that would justify the amount of parking that we have. The parking based on the square footages leads us to almost 5 spaces per 1,000, which is typical for a retail development. So we think that there's ample parking for this use. Also, to what Kevin was talking about earlier, you know, the times that the folks are going to be using the daycare are going to be opposite from the times that most folks are going to be using the brew pub and those other food establishments. They'll sort of be different times.
And
So
I just want to add regarding the way that the parking basically shakes out, because there is this brew pub food hall concept here. I believe in our zoning code, there are several uses basically that get called out for that actually have parking requirements, you know, usually per square feet or number of doctors, things like that. When it comes to restaurants, it essentially says, show us a demand study. So because a large portion of your square footage here, you know, in what you're proposing, I mean, ultimately the parking is also reviewed when it comes to the occupancy permits. Those are use permits essentially. Now, of course, it would behoove a developer to make sure that whatever they want to do, they have enough parking to meet the ordinance at that point. But, you know, tenants change, uses change, things like that. A large portion of the square footage would essentially just be dependent on the demand study for the restaurant portion. I'd have to take a look exactly at how the daycare use might change, but that would fall under the typical retail.
yeah, I think the daycare only requires, I think it was like 11 spaces or 14 spaces.
Yeah, it's probably quite a low number since most of the patrons will not be driving, I hope, or else they're very so, you know, there's with the particular uses that they're proposing here, although those aren't necessarily something that have to be tied to the land development, because that's more of an administrative, you know, occupancy permit issue. You know, we want to take a look at it, but I think there's a little bit of wiggle room to make sure that we don't ultimately end up creating more pavement than we need to, you know, right on this waterway here.
Yeah.
I can comment on our theoretical analysis. RJ's right. I mean, at the end of the day, we have a lot of experience from McCandless Crossing that translates to what we've done here, and really to make sure that the uses are complementary. And at the same time, we also know there's 400 spaces immediately abutting us to our west, that the Port Authority is currently committed to redoing. And obviously, the rest of the old showcase is hopefully going to see new development. And I would suspect, well, I mean, currently it's a sea of parking. And I would suspect when that gets developed that there will be some of that. So we felt like we needed to make sure we had enough for our own development and to be complementary to the senior living and ultimately the townhomes. So it was not without a lot of discussion and thought. And I believe, Jerry, we came out at like 4.98 spaces per 1,000, but with the variance in timing on the uses, we went through this a lot where we had restaurants like First Watch, complementing Longhorn in a shared parking arrangement. At times, it may appear tight, but at no time has there ever been a time when somebody could not get a parking space in McCandless Crossing. And we stayed at approximately, I think, 4.17 spaces per 1,000, including the movie theater. We didn't want, and this is also meant to be a walkable area to encourage people to get out on their feet, to do hopefully more than one thing when they come. And so the intent was that we didn't need to over park.
I have also heard great enthusiasm from, this is in my ward, so this is a little bit near and dear to my heart, the walkability from Parkland, from LeGrand, from Hickory Hills. There are a lot of people in those areas who plan on walking down here, not even driving. So, not in the winter, but walking down there. So that's what the nice thing about having this so close to neighborhoods is that people, I'm not going to drive my car down there, I'm going to walk.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what we hope happens. And we hope, park users as well, people on bikes, runners, etc., that it becomes another opportunity to meet and greet and spend time there. So,
do you have a bike rack in there somewhere?
I'm sure we can find one or two of those to accommodate. We'll meet the needs of if the bikers show up, we'll make sure they have a spot to go.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
And the only other item, the comment about the separation of the buildings, that 1,800 square foot building in the middle of the two larger buildings. I think what we're going to do is we're just going to consolidate it into the commercial building on the left-hand side so that we have ample separation between the daycare and the retail building. And that'll show up on the revised plans.
That'll give a little bit more of an opportunity to sort of add a little courtyard fluff.
Yeah.
There. Yeah.
Jerry, you bringing people down, like Kim was talking about, people that might be using McCandless Drive. Are you bringing people into the development further to the east? Is
Yeah.
there a way to get in this way?
Yeah, there's a sidewalk, and of course, we closed the plan, but there's a sidewalk in front of the funeral home there.
Okay.
And we're putting a crossing over to our side and then into the development.
Okay, so that spur line comes over. Okay. Then will you be able to come down the drive and in on the short side here, closest to the east? You know what I'm talking about? Instead of people, they're not going to walk all, they're not going to go up all the way around. And, there's a sidewalk. There's one here. Okay.
I think there's a sidewalk on the whole frontage, isn't there?
Yes.
Yes.
I was just,
Yeah.
everybody wants to walk the shortest distance though, right?
That's right.
Get in quick, more quickly.
We'll know real quick where we need to add sidewalks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Where we
are
start.
you thinking like that there needs to be steps from the sidewalk?
No,
on
I
that
think
side?
he's got it handled. If I'm
Okay.
coming from McCandless Drive,
Mhm, mhm.
there's a kind of a shortcut into the retail that
Right,
you would come down
right,
along the drive.
Right.
and
I
come
thought you
in
were talking
that
about
direction.
the other end.
I'm not sure on the other end.
That's what I thought maybe.
Same thing. There's a sidewalk closest to the Port Authority side that wraps down along Cooper Street. So there's the sidewalk all the way along Blazier, and then on the left-hand side here on our entrance driveway, there's a sidewalk that follows that, yeah, if you go, put your cursor down on the left-hand side of that roadway, right there. So it follows Cooper Street on the left-hand side all the way down and around into the town green. And then when that other parcel develops, I'm sure there'll be sidewalks on that side as well.
Any other comments?
If the commissioners don't have any immediate questions, maybe I'll turn it over to Mr. Dizeroff in case he has anything he specifically wants to call out. for
No,
this
I
review
think
letter.
Jerry identified the major issues in his revised plan. My main issues were the parking and the walls. I mean, other than that, there's some minor cleanup items, but I think, you know, and the typical things that we have at the end, but, you know.
I didn't have this slated for a motion tonight,
Yeah.
just because I thought it might be good, especially with the, you know, the, what's the word that I want? Gravity of this development, that it would be good to have, you know, those cleanup items addressed before it gets out of the planning commission. But, you know, if there's any other feedback, you know, that we want to take back into the review process, now would be the time.
Did we vote on the subdivision plan?
No, they just did the motion to accept the whole application for review.
Probably want to do this part and parcel, do
Yeah.
them together no matter what. If you do it tonight, you do them together.
Yeah, it would be cleaner to keep them together.
Okay, I guess that's it then, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
right.
All right, yeah, we will take a look at whenever you have the revisions in. We usually ask 2 full weeks before the next planning commission meeting that you're gonna appear on.
Okay.
And then we'll get you a comment letter back before that.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. We appreciate it.
Thank
Sorry
you.
I couldn't be there.
Ted, if you don't mind, we've got the same presenter for the next 2 applications. You want to take a 3-minute?
That'd be good.
All right, so for the viewers at home, we will be back in about 3 minutes. We're just going to take a quick break before we roll into the next 2 applications.
Or do you want me to just?
RJ?
The first city. Have there been quarries and such? There's been some work that's done on this piece, like fragmented. Jason.
It's really what we're. And then.
He's identifying phase 2. All clearance. People see two clearance now.
So I also think that you need some steps. Let me go show you.
Down the hill.
And with the flooding
Yeah.
occurs.
It seems like it's like 5 or 6 feet.
Yeah.
That's not
So
water
that seems
comes into the residual.
No, I don't think so.
problem.
How you doing?
What I was talking about is, he's like, oh, the road is gonna go down here, right here. So what I'm saying is, all the people that have to walk down here.
Right.
What I'm wondering is, think about putting a little bit of steps right there.
Surprised me.
Oh, yeah, you could do that. It wouldn't be ADA.
Yeah, okay. But
That's him.
it's still have ADA.
Yeah.
But I don't think, I'm telling you, people.
I agree with you. I was having the same concern here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said people are gonna cut where, Kim?
They're gonna cut here,
This is
because
on
the
the
people from Hickory Hills.
But how are the Hickory Hill people going to get down there? They have to be a billy goat to get down
They,
there.
no, no, they trail it. They asked me to not mention that in public because they want people going up there. But there actually is a trail from Hickory Hills. Nice gentleman put that in for us. Had some connectivity from Hickory Hills down to the bus area.
Well, then I think there should be some steps.
I think some steps right there, because this is too far to walk.
They won't do that.
That's what I'm.
I'll talk to Jim. Yeah, yeah. I'll make it happen.
I just thought on this one,
I know.
it would probably be a good idea for them to either put conduit or to have charging stations, as long as well as the bike rack.
I didn't think there was.
People like to.
When it's on the retaining wall, yeah, sure is. You can see these are two full contours right here.
It's a way to.
So it goes from 10
to the.
top of where these are.
They'll pay for the.
This looks like driving lot 1 or 2.
Right, okay.
There's 1,000. So it's 1,000 or 1,010. This one.
Yeah.
So where Kim's talking about over here, so as far as 5, 10.
I mean,
They don't
if
charge
you
at your
have a
house.
station, yeah, but if you stop in the station.
I have the original plans from 2018.
They could, if they have something that can charge it quickly. And is that
Do
technology?
we know
Yeah.
what that's going to be? I mean, it's pathways and green, is that all? it is?
I'll pay $10 on my car wash.
That's just open space. That's what I remember.
Yeah, because if you plug it in your home and you have a regular line,
I hate to be
it takes
a naysayer.
it takes 8 to 10 hours.
I know that
More
they, at
Yeah,
Camas
my
Crossing,
son-in-law has.
they have this concept of a village green. I think I'm
You could- yeah,
underwhelmed.
okay. Yeah,
by
you
Village
could-
Green.
Kevin Dimension.
You managed to install one in Cape Cod.
It was supposed to.
It
be
still
something
takes a long
so
time to do.
everybody wanted to be spectacular.
I was thinking, in my mind, I'm thinking
Yeah.
it's a large space.
So, and
Kids
that,
could be
that
playing on
progressive,
it.
kids could see that. I mean,
Have you
the
ever
gas
been to the
stations
Washington
just start to close.
No, not the Washington Mall. Have you ever been to the
No, but you know, it's funny you say that.
And that's
Just
why
we're
you
gonna
see
go
a
up there
lot of like
because
malls.
everybody talks about it so much.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Places like that
They
where
have
folks
this
gather and
village
sit for a
food.
while.
It's got a fountain in the middle. It's got a beautiful fountain.
Go into the food
Kids are
hall.
always kicking the ball and
Beer
people
hall. or
walk in
whatever.
and walking the
You
dogs,
know,
and it's
like-
got enough space to it. That's what I had in my mind when we were talking about.
Greg, while you're pouring.
This is a lot bigger.
I think I can.
Well, this would be
use one.
Oh, yeah.
You know, much bigger. Yeah, the thing.
No, I didn't.
But it's bigger. I just was curious as to what was going to be in it.
I mean, scale what, that's 8 feet, right? So
What did you bring in?
I need 60 by 160 maybe.
I wish. It was the rest of my
Camas Crossing.
diet Pepsi. I was eating with my dinner. So I just.
You know, I was picturing a huge.
As I was running out the door.
kind of thing,
But I'll hit it with some water once I'm done.
place to meet an obvious.
Where do you live?
I had to drive around.
I live in Bronx. Same Green.
Things change.
It's off of Seabrook. and it runs
Well, and
all the way.
I just don't want to be,
Okay.
you know, expecting one thing and get this one is Kevin's on control.
It's the first left past the old Berkeley Hills oven.
I think they're building such upscale places.
We were back like this.
Yeah, he was right here. Yeah, I renamed part of it.
Yeah, but I mean, moving.
Don't.
We were gonna do it last year. Derailed because of COVID, and we wanted to like see the thing. You know, we didn't want to just say, okay, we're gonna do it or nothing.
Maybe a couple, 3 weeks ago, and obviously.
They
there's a
waited
lot
until
of-
this year. I was obviously not a commissioner still, but
From the exterior, there's.
we did it in May. April or May, April. Yeah.
I was,
Now, part 2.
I did some work down there. Years. This is Curly. This is Curly. I can't remember the name of her. She was back in there somebody.
Yeah, that was my ward. That was my neighbor.
She, wanted it screen and push. So I developed it, it got more and more elaborate.
Ah,
Probably should have figured out that I could do that at the beginning of the break.
This is how everything was. You didn't put glass up there.
Ready to rock?
Ready to rock.
All right. So we have first of two presentations Mr. Victor's got tonight.
All right. Item 6 is a continued review and recommendation of rezoning application for the Marwa property parcels. Marwa property parcels from R2 to R3. Property is located on the western side of Perry Highway, north of Vestal Park. Okay, we don't need to. Since this is a continuation, we don't have to have a motion to accept your plan.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Stephen Victor from Victor Wetzel Associates. I did have a PowerPoint presentation for you last month. There are people in the audience who didn't see that. I have refreshed it for tonight's meeting. Really doesn't add anything new, but if you would like, I'll run through it very exceptionally quick.
It is loading as we speak.
Okay.
This is going to be a pretty good presentation because it is a long download.
It's quite honestly, it's small comparatively. It's only 18 meg, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah, the full land development set earlier was a little bit more of a challenge.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, here we go. If you'll click to the full presentation mode.
Oh, where the heck is that? It's been a long time since I did a PowerPoint.
One more to the right.
There we go, over here.
I saw your cursor. There you go.
There we go.
That should do it. All right. Again, we're here to ask for an R2 to R3. That's all right. Go to the, no, I'm ready for the next slide. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
I was reading your mind.
We're here to request the rezoning of a piece of property that is in the R2 zoning district. For location purposes, north is to the right. In the middle of the site, or the middle of the screen here is Perry Highway, running north to the right, south to the left. This is at what I refer to as the bottom of the hill on Pine Creek Hill, with the Wexford Flats off to the right. You can see the surrounding property and the existing property is R2, new slide. However, when we look at land uses around us, you'll see that it's really a mix of uses, even though it's all zoned R2, that we do have to the north and northwest of us, we have the existing single family. To the south of us is Sarver Lane, which is a private street with a couple of larger single family lots. To the due south of us is a Duquesne Light substation. To the east of us on the other side of Perry Highway, even though it is zoned R2 single family, you have office, some self-storage facilities, and then the North Hills Lodge of fraternal organization. So you have a variety of uses that fall not within the traditional R2. Next slide. So I would refer to it as a mixed use. The topography of the site is such that as Perry Highway from our northerly corner going to the south, the grade is falling significantly. There's, I believe, 40 or 50 some feet of elevation change across our 2,000 feet of frontage. The point of access is pretty much limited because the only street frontage for a public street we have is along Perry Highway. Again, Sarver Lane to our south is a private street and we don't have rights to that private street. And topographically, it would not be physically possible to really make a construct there. Next slide. Access to the site is really a major driving force and why this property has never developed, in that there is a Jersey median barrier down the middle of Perry Highway, which would restrict traffic to a right in, right out access point. And so what we've done is at that northeasterly corner, create a right in, right out access that would come up and loop in a enlarged cul-de-sac type street with a series of courts coming off of it. Next slide. The proposed housing would be a townhouse. We were using the Ryan Homes Wexford townhouse, which is a very traditional townhouse, meaning it's a 3-level, 2-car garage on the lowest level with the entrance. On the mid-level would be the living room, dining room, kitchen. And on the upper level would be the 3 bedrooms. So again, very traditional, what we refer to as an up and down type townhouse. Next slide. When you look at the McCandless zoning map, you will see that there are, and I'll refer to it as scattered or isolated pockets of R3 around the community. The McCandless has not followed a pattern of placing a large mass of R3. Instead, there are 14 different sites, as shown in the circle there, of various sites scattered throughout the municipality where R3 zoning has taken place. So I think that that certainly should squelch any discussion about spot zoning or this being a unique situation within the municipality for that. Next slide. And the conclusions you heard me say last month, but again, for the purpose of the audience who is not here, we believe the rezoning is appropriate because this is a neighborhood of mixed uses, that the property's only access is from Route 19. So if there's any increased traffic, it's all put back onto a major collector road. The Route 19 corridor, as you go up and down through McCandless, is an area of higher intensity, whether it be commercial or multifamily, or the D zoning districts. It is where you have concentrated your higher intensity uses. And McCandless has traditionally scattered its R3 townhouse type developments, usually in and adjacent to R2. So again, it's not unusual to find this by past practices in McCandless. And lastly, McCandless is unusual, or has a certain standard that it has for setbacks between single family and multifamily, that if rezoned to R3, then the standard side rear yard setbacks would be replaced by a 100-foot cul-de-sac or 100-foot buffer around all sides of the property for the single family and multifamily. So next slide, I think, takes us to the plan. Nope. Okay, back up. We'll just leave it there unless somebody has specific questions. We are moving forward to having a public hearing, which will be
We've got the ad is supposed to be placed tomorrow, scheduled for July 26th.
Okay,
Should be
so-
running in the Sunday papers for a couple weeks.
all right. So on July 26th, the town council will hold a public hearing, and we certainly would appreciate it if the planning commission is prepared to make a recommendation.
And I just want to make a note on that final date, because of the cuts that have been made to the number of days that the newspapers actually run legal ads. If for some reason there isn't enough room for us to make that 26th date, we will heavily advertise that on the town website and make sure all the adjacent property owners are aware. At this point, we should be fine for the 26th.
Okay, do you have any other comments, RJ?
Me? Oh, I think that, there's not too much new information here, like Mr. Victor alluded to. So, I mean, I don't particularly have anything to add, I guess, for the benefit of the group, since, we have sort of reiterated some of the information. It's accurate that typically denser or more intense, as they're called, uses should be located by faster roads. That's pretty typical. That said, certainly switching to R2 is going to be a significant increase in units from however many they could probably fit on this property is at R2. Of course, all of the traffic scoping and everything has to go through PennDOT because this would be coming off of a state highway. So there are definitely, considerations either way for this particular application.
How many units are on the property, by the way?
One of the slides quoted as 86 units on the property. And we have had our traffic engineer, Wooster and Associates, has had an ongoing dialogue with the township's engineer, traffic engineer, and PennDOT. So we feel that we will be permitted a highway occupancy permit subject to final design by them. We did talk about it last time that as part of the design, there would be a deceleration lane required for approaching it. A acceleration lane coming out of it was deemed to be less safe than a T intersection. The point, I think, was made by your traffic engineer that coming up to the right out and not stopping, but just coming up to it and going immediately onto an acceleration lane may be a lot more dangerous because you're now throwing yourself out to any oncoming traffic, where instead stopping at a stop sign, looking up the hill, seeing if you have clearance, then making the turn right would be safer from a traffic engineering point of view.
And our engineer made that determination?
I believe it was Mike Haberman who made that comment,
He made
yes.
that comment, but he doesn't have final say on it. It's PennDOT's rep.
Yeah.
So PennDOT, what I understand from Mike is that PennDOT shies away, and I'm not a traffic engineer, I'll qualify that. Neither is Steve. But
You're more than I am, but.
PennDOT shies away from acceleration lanes. They look more at decel lanes when people are trying to slow down and come in and turn into a development, or a turning lane, of course.
Put the plan back.
That's better too, but they're all from a stop position. And again, I mean, that's PennDOT. PennDOT's gonna have to look at it.
So this is just for rezoning at this
Yeah,
point.
this is,
That's
So as
correct.
we get into the planning of it, we would look at that intersection in more detail. Is that correct?
We would look at that, stormwater, sidewalk circulation, all the site plan issues. There is no formal site plan approval process given through the rezoning process.
Yeah, and that includes looking at all the zoning aspects. I mean, I think that maybe in the previous discussion, they had mentioned that they would request, for example, like a reduction in setback to Perry Highway, because it's pretty deep given the fact that R2 is on the other side of the street. However, neither of those uses are actual single-family home uses. So, those are some of the things that have come up in this conceptual discussion, but none of that, constitutes an actual approval of any of those aspects. That would have to go through the land development process.
So you may have answered my question though, because the concept plan is for 86 units of townhomes. And I believe on page 3 of the draft minutes for June 1st meeting, you estimate that the total acreage RJ estimated the total acreage that could support 86 units. RJ was interested in seeing how pulling out of the steep slopes or drive aisles might affect the density calculation.
Yeah, so I think thinking back to that, the site is a little over 15 acres. I want to say 15 point, Mr. Victor, what is it? Okay.
15.9.
Close enough. Okay, so almost 16. So essentially, if you just do the flat multiplier of how many units you're allowed to have per acre for townhomes, which I want to say is maybe 14, maybe 12. I'd have to crack open the zoning code to know for sure, but it's somewhere in that ballpark. That's sort of the gross lot area. As our zoning code is currently written, it differentiates between net lot and gross lot. This is a little bit of a journey here for how we calculate net lot area, but this is what's in the code. Essentially, there is a prescribed width for drive aisles, a prescribed width for parking spots, that we make an assumption that you're going to design both of those to, the minimum size that our code requires. So, in parking spots, it'd be 10 by 18. Even if you get a variance to do 9-foot spots, you still have to calculate this using the default, it would be 10 by 18, for example. So you add up all of that square footage from the drive aisles and parking spots, and then you take half of all of the steep slope acreage on the site, which would have to be engineered exactly where that is in the land development phase. But so essentially you take all of the acreage that is totaled in those several calculations you make, and you pull it out of your total acreage that you can use for density. So I think that the calculation with just the gross lot acreage, they're still well within the density requirements for these 86 units, but without knowing exactly how all of that maths out, I can't say for sure whether they would be able to do this many units. I know that was a doozy, so I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
I can't answer that because you raised that question. And the day after last month's meeting, I went back and I measured all those elements. And I don't remember the number because it's been a month, but we well
You were
exceeded,
still over it.
we well exceeded the 86.
So
It
that
did
seems
not,
like a fair bet.
it did
At
not,
least
it did not have the, because I took all those, your formula, went back and read the ordinance, took your formula and calculated it. And we have an allowable density that is much higher than the 86.
158.
Well, no, the allowable is 158 if, but you're supposed to take out steep slopes. You're supposed to take out the street. You're supposed to take out the parking. And that was hinted as maybe hurting the 86. I'm testifying here, it does not. We far exceed that requirement. So, and we can prove that at the time of land development.
Surprise me, honestly,
So-
but it's just, since there were questions last time around about exactly how many units, that the math has to be done, it sounds like they've done it and they would probably be able to fit at least 86, if not more.
Right.
Yeah, but again, of course, all of that will be checked over at the land development phase.
And I just want to ask, with respect to this property to be rezoned, the Marwell property and the Oak Ridge Drive, there was some comment that this property and a property, which is the property be rezoned, drains directly into some of the property on Oak Ridge Drive. You countered, Mr. Gardner, you countered that comment by saying the drainage seems to go in the direction of Oak Ridge Drive, but both Oak Ridge Drive and I guess this property also, both the Oak Ridge property and at least some of them in this property go into a swale that runs along the properties. I'm picturing a swale as being a small valley or something like that.
Yes, the drainage way, yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can, if we go back maybe 2 slides, I believe there's a topographic map.
Nope.
Just 1 slide, there
Might
we
as
go.
well- Okay.
There we go. And if you were to draw a straight line between the word site and the word, whatever that is, Oak Ridge Drive, I think that's Oak Ridge Drive, and about at the rear of those lots, that's where the drainage swale is, right there. So our water today, when it runs off, goes into that swale and goes for that portion of the ridge. So it would be about 1/3 of our property flows off toward that ridge. The other 1/3 of our property flows to Route 19, would be the easterly side, and the southerly side goes to Sarver Lane. Now, that being said, go back to the colored slide. Our stormwater detention facilities are located in such a way that our drainage, we're going to pick up the drainage from the first 2 courts and take that water over to our detention facilities. And then, so all of our water is being controlled, and as by your ordinance, the water that comes off of a controlled site will be less than what it is today. So fears and concerns that we are going to flood the houses on Oak Ridge Drive is unfounded because topographically our water can't get to those houses. Can it get to the ravine? Yes. Will it get to the ravine once developed in a lesser rate? Yes, because your ordinance requires us to do so.
Well, as a follow-up, in any event, there are homes below Sarver Lane, approximately 4 homes. Could they be affected by stormwater?
Again, our discharge from our stormwater detention facility will gather all of the water that currently today flows south onto the Sarver Lane. And we have a driveway that comes down, so it acts as almost like a interceptor as well, brings it all to stormwater management number 1. That's in the, as you're looking at, lower right corner, thank you. And the discharge for that is a pipe that goes underneath Route 19. So, no, we're quite comfortable. We are not going to have issues with stormwater, and we will prove that at the time of land development.
But this is just for the rezoning.
This is
We're-
just
we have to go
rezoning.
through all this again.
All this
Right, so
discussion
This is not
is,
even what we're doing.
right, these are great questions, but we're just very confident to tell you there are not problems created by stormwater for this.
One of the positive things about development is that oftentimes the stormwater is improved coming off of a property from how it was before, because we make it have to be improved.
Mhm.
So sometimes the conditions were worse than after.
That is a possibility, yes.
Any other questions? Are there any public comments? Would you come up and identify yourself?
I'm just going to ask you to spell your name
Sure.
And give me your address, please.
Sure. First, let me apologize for my appearance. No disrespect intended. I found out about the meeting at the last minute and had to come from another event. But my name is Brian Wright, Brian Wright. And I own the house at 10061 Oak Ridge Drive, which is at the top right corner of that drawing. And the committee probably is aware that this issue was visited many years ago. And I'm not sure exactly how many of you were part of the committee back then, but I want to say 10 to 15 years ago, this was attempted to be rezoned from residential, is that R2, to R3. And there was, quite a bit of opposition from the Oak Ridge neighborhood in general. Obviously, maybe 4 or 5 properties that directly abut the project for obvious reasons. We all feel as if we purchased our houses, with the zoning as it was behind us, and with not intending for it to be, kind of be changed, after the fact, after we purchased our houses. But after that, really from the whole Oak Ridge neighborhood as a whole, because one issue that I know this is just about the rezoning, but one issue that hasn't been brought up here at all is the awkwardness of entry and exit from this property. I'm sure you all are aware that this is that uphill section of 19 where there's a New Jersey barrier, so you got to be traveling south on Route 19 to enter the property. So I think it needs to be noted how many people are going to be willing to travel up into the Wexford Flats, upon which they now need to do a U-turn essentially, or find a business where they can cross over the street, then pull back out and come south to get into their neighborhood. I know that's the understanding they would be under when they, perhaps purchase one of these townhouses. But the reason our whole neighborhood eventually became involved in this is because this becomes a major issue for Oak Ridge, in that it will not take long for people to figure out that a much more convenient way to get yourself traveling south on 19 would be to simply cross over 19, travel on Pine Creek Road for a short period of time, make the right-hand turn into Oak Ridge, and then you go up through there. It's not shown here, but if you could zoom out on this, go up through there. That Oak Ridge connects into Longview and Forest View, which empty out right onto Route 19, and would put you going south for that purpose.
So are you saying you would see more traffic on your side streets?
Through the Oak Ridge neighborhood?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. 87, or what was the number? 87, 89?
86.
Yeah, 86 homes. And now all those people figure out, again, it's a major issue. If you're coming from anywhere south of this development, are you going to want to go up to 19 and do a U-turn, or find, that in just practically, that's not going to happen. People are going to figure out that, a much more convenient way to do it is to cross over 19 onto Pine Creek, up through Oak Ridge, onto Forest View or Longview. And I should say that, when I speak about Oak Ridge having opposition to this, that's a grouping of, I don't know the exact number, but let's say 90 houses. That doesn't include all the residents on Forest View and Longview, which are not technically part of the Oak Ridge development. So I think that there'd be, a lot of concern from a traffic perspective there. Additionally, in regards to traffic, as you all know, this is an extremely historically dangerous section of Route 19 going south, where it's, you pass Firestone and you start downhill and speeds increase. And I totally understand the preference not to do an acceleration lane, where that kind of forces you to into an area where eventually you're going to have to merge, whether there's room or not. But it just seems like a dangerous situation from that perspective as well. And given that section of 19 and the history there. And then just wanted to comment on the water issue. You know, we are the house at that very top right-hand corner, and I can say we already see, you know, significant drainage to the very back of our property from this property as it exists. So I don't. Yeah, I understand what the thinking is that it kind of goes into the ravine, but it doesn't go into the ravine quite as quickly as you might think. So it does come down to that corner, that top right-hand corner as well. And I can imagine, you know, that's a concern as well, you know, more an individual concern or myself and maybe the 2 or 3 houses that directly abut. But there'll definitely be some concerns from the Oak Ridge neighborhood, as well as all those residents on Longview and Forest View. And my understanding, I'm not sure, but it was so long ago, like I said, this was 10 to 15 years ago, but I thought, is there not water or sewage? Do you have to go under 19 to get that? Or is that part of the issue as well? Or has that been addressed already?
I would assume the developer would have to answer a question like that.
Yeah, and we're going to go through all
Okay,
of this.
okay.
This is not,
Okay.
we're just looking at the rezoning today.
Whether it ends up, you know, whether this rezoning ends up being successful or perhaps even not, you know, those are things that would have to still be covered, at least at the land development process, which of course would come through this body and then to town council again.
Sure.
It looks like there's a couple of other ways that you can get back on without having to go through Oak Ridge that are actually more convenient. Just to give you some.
House.
Well, I mean, I don't want to get into it here, but I'm just looking at the map here. So, it looks like there are some other ways that you can kind of double back on Old Perry Highway and hopping back on Perry Highway.
Yeah, with all due respect, I would, living right in that area,
Right.
and knowing also from, we have issues with the high school, when the high school lets out, that is the main, coming through the neighborhood is the main route. So with all due respect, I do believe that while there might be some other ones, I do think that Oak Ridge is the most convenient and will become the kind of the path. And that's really why, like I said, the whole neighborhood got involved last time, because even if you lived lower in the neighborhood and weren't directly impacted by being, directly abutting, you were going to be impacted by that traffic situation.
Okay. Anything else?
No. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
We've got if the planning commission wants to tender a recommendation on this before the public hearing, it has to be tonight.
Okay. You have anything else to say, Steve?
I would say that we have likewise looked, and there are alternative ways by which to disperse the traffic. But also, I think the impression is that all traffic will come from the south, trying to get into the development, and that's not true. People's traffic patterns, some people do buy at health, to the shopping center to the north. And there's a lot of businesses, people work to the north. So there's a certain percentage of the traffic that will not come through Oak Ridge, no matter how desirable it may presume to be, because they're coming from the north or heading back to the north. And if they're going back to the north, they certainly would just go south, go to the traffic light, make a couple lefts down near the drugstore, and throw themselves back on 19.
Okay. All right. Does anyone want to make a motion to recommend town council approve the Marwa property rezoning application to change the zoning district to R3 from R2 for the purpose of constructing townhomes?
For the benefit of anyone who's watching and trying to figure out how motions work, they have to make motions to bring the item to the table to even vote on it either way. So,
So
I would make a motion to recommend the town council reject the Marwa property rezoning application to change the zoning district from to R3 from R2 for the purpose of constructing townhomes.
I don't know if you can do that. Can you do that?
Waterman?
Can you do that?
Yes, you can.
Okay, I always thought motions had to be in the affirmative. Okay. There is a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
So this can only go one of two ways.
Yeah. The
So
motion
you
is,
gotta vote
the
for
motion is
something.
to reject.
Yeah,
Yeah, so a yes vote would mean telling town council not to approve it.
That's correct.
I'll second that motion.
All right,
May I ask a point of order?
sure.
Then a no vote means that you are recommending
Well, no,
in favor.
I don't think so yet. I think we'd have to have another motion, wouldn't we?
Essentially, yeah, if basically if this, and Steve, correct me if I'm wrong here, if this motion doesn't succeed,
If it passes, it's the recommendation is reject. If the
Period.
motion fails, the recommendation is approved.
Oh,
I wouldn't go back and do
Okay.
another motion. I understand what Ed was saying, like, let's do the motion to approve, and if you vote it down, it's rejected, but it's fine to do it this way as well.
Okay,
let's just do a roll call vote on this one, since there's been some, back and forth on, so I think I usually go alphabetical and then you're the caboose.
okay.
So, Mr. Hall, you're up. Approve or reject?
Reject change, reason.
Okay, so that's actually technically a yes. Mr. Cordum?
I'm voting yes to reject the motion. Here's rezone.
Okay, Mr. Wakauskas?
I'm voting to reject I'm voting for the motion.
Okay.
but I'm voting to not approve of the
Yeah,
rezoning.
I know this is a mental puzzle here. All right. You voting or you abstaining?
No, I'm gonna vote no.
Okay, so you are
I'm voting to approve this.
approve, okay. And minor is technically no, but functionally yes. Okay, well, in that case, the motion recommending the town council reject the rezoning carries with a 3-1.
Right.
And it'll go to town council and
They can do whatever they want.
Do what they want.
That's right.
All right. Well, Mr. Victor, you might as well stay standing there because you're up next anyway.
I wasn't going to give up the podium.
All right, and again, there is a note on here that we've got the public hearing presumptively scheduled for the 26th. If for some reason there's an issue with spacing a newspaper, we will heavily update the website accordingly and make sure that all the abutting property owners are aware.
Okay.
All right,
All right, the next item on the agenda is the Pascal Place Garden Apartments.
Rezone or reload the PowerPoint, please.
yeah,
Thank you.
let's see if this one takes as long to download. Oh, it's smaller, it's gonna be faster.
It's going pretty good.
Yeah.
That's loading. I can get some of the intro out of the way. Just for the record, my name is Stephen Victor from Victor Wetzel Associates. I'm here tonight with Kevin Lozelle, who is the principal. Is that the correct title? Principal? He is the principal of K-Man Properties, who's been the applicant for this. He is joined by his mother and father, Carol and Keith Lozelle, who have been the front faces for this project for the last 2 years. They also have some friends who are also interested in the project who are here as well this evening. This is a project that you have seen several months ago. We have made some slight revisions. So next slide, please. The building itself has reduced in size slightly from 28 units when you saw it 2 months ago to 22 units. So we have a slightly smaller footprint for the building and a slightly different orientation for some of the side access points. So before we entered front and rear, now we're entering front and two sides. So on the side view that you see on the lower elevation there, you'll see the doorway on the lower level. This is a 3-story building in which the living level is first, second, and third. There is no basement on this site, and the reason for that is because of the proximity to Pine Creek and the floodplain. Next slide. This shows the existing conditions. This is a drawing you've seen previously. Again, Blazer Drive is along our frontage that we do not own all the way to Ingomar Road, and that along our property is the southern side would be Pine Creek, the Pine Creek floodway, and then adjacent to that would be the Pine Creek flood plain. That's the yellow colored area. And you can see the small little island area there closer to Blazer Drive where we are finally above the flood plain. Next slide. Our proposal is to build a single apartment building. We have, at your direction from the last meeting, relocated the entrance and exit drive on our left here. That's the eastern one, so that it is midpoint between McCandless Drive and the funeral home driveway, which is located right below the word drive on Blazer Drive. So our driveway now is midpoint between those two, which was requested. Reducing our building size slightly reduced our parking, so it allowed us to shrink down and easily move that over to meet that suggestion for that. Next slide. Again, I've superimposed the outline of our building to the flood plain, and you can see where we are encroaching ever so slightly into the flood plain area. We are allowed to build into the floodplain as long as we do not raise the elevation of the FEMA by our intrusion into it. And the intrusion is so minor. Our engineer just finished this afternoon the hydraulics on that, and we'll be able to provide that to Dan to verify that. And also, we took the FEMA and ran a HEC-RAS for that to do the stormwater calcs, and the FEMA flood elevation came back as originally intended, which was, as per your maps, which is 988. And we are building at elevation 990. So we are above the FEMA flood elevation as is required by code. So we're good to go there. Next slide. One of the review, the most recent review letter brought forth an item that we were unaware of. And quite honestly, you may not be aware of either, that you have I want to make sure I say this right, a Streets, Utilities, and Public Services Code, Section 913 of your ordinance, that says that it's not in the saldo, it's not in the zoning, it's in this Public Service Code, that says we must maintain a 25-foot setback / buffer from wetlands. And so if we can, next slide, in that portion of this area, at the back of our building, we have a deck that is sticking out approximately 16 feet. From the tip of that deck to our wetlands is 19 feet. So we have a deck that's encroaches 6 feet into the 25-foot setback. So therefore,
is this an elevated deck or?
It is an elevated deck.
Okay.
It sits about 5 feet above it. So the actual intrusion into the flood plain, or excuse me, the actual intrusion into the wetlands buffer, we're not even into the wetlands, but we have a wetland buffer of 25 feet. Our only intrusion is we're going to build 2 posts into the ground to hold up a deck that'll float over the buffer zone. So we think that that is reasonable to ask that. If the modification is not granted, then the deck would simply be reduced in size. We would like this to be allowed because this deck comes off the public, or not the public, the community room that we have on the first floor for the residents. And so it becomes an outdoor social space for them. And it is the south side of the building, so it gets a lot of solar, et cetera. It's an ideal location for it. And we think using the deck has the least amount of intrusion to the woods and the wetlands that we have back there. So we were hoping that you will grant the modification. But the site plan does not stand up with just the need for this. Next. Again, brings us back to just the site plan. I think the last engineer's review letter had a lot of little points, check the boxes and add a few notes here and there type stuff, but nothing dramatic, unless Dan wants to correct me on that statement. And we're looking for you to make a recommendation so we can go forward.
Dan, do you have anything to say?
Steve, as usual, does a great presentation. But my only concern is, it is pretty important that we see that data that the project is not affecting the floodplain. While I trust he has accurate information, I've not seen that yet. That's probably my most significant comment. Other than that, as Steve said, there's a lot of minor cleanup issues related to that that I think that we can work through before town council. That's my comments.
Yeah, I know we have it. It took us a while to get the flood information from the Corps of Engineers when you deal with doing a FEMA request. And so that's why we're a little tardy in getting it, but we did get it last week and we've run the calcs. So we're comfortable we will be able to satisfy the engineer's requirements for that. Yes.
Would it be possible, decks are just outside spaces important for everyone, and that's would be a lovely place to look out from. I totally support that. Would it be possible, instead of having the deck square coming off the back, to have a little walkway that went to the side and then the deck, because you got lots of space on that other side there?
The problem is that if you project left and right, and it's funny you raise that question because it was given to me just today. Why don't we just spread it out? If you go left and right off of that space, then you're putting yourselves in front of the windows or the patios for the residents who live on the two rooms left and right of it. So we would find that more intrusive to those residents to put a public space, communal space there. So
is it possible to rearrange the room so that you could bring, instead of the communal space coming out in the center, out the back, coming out this side, this way?
The communal space, and I didn't know we were going to be at this level of detail, otherwise I would have put the architectural plans in. But that answer, the reason the communal space is where it is that you'll see that it's directly opposite the front door. You can enter in the front door, you're in a vestibule, and from there you can go into that communal space. You cannot leave that specific area and go into the private residences without some controls. If we were to move it left or right, as you were suggesting, into another area, then it means anybody who is coming to visit, who is going to meet at the communal space, may then be going up and down the hallways of the individual residents. We don't really feel that that is very compatible for the security and privacy that one should expect. So I think I think you have to really weigh the importance of what you're asking for. You're asking for a 25-foot buffer for no reason other than you want a 25-foot buffer. And what you're trying to do is protect the wetlands from having an encroachment of grading and activity upon it. We're neither grading, we're floating 5 foot above it. What's the harm? But again, if you think that that's harmful, we'll pull the deck 6 feet back and the problem's gone.
Comments? Dan?
I brought this up last time. I'll bring it up again. The floods, the Ivan flood that was whenever it was 12, 15 years ago. You said you got FEMA data today or just recently?
Last week.
Last week. Do you know what the Ivan flood elevation was in your space? You said that FEMA is calling it 988 and you're building at 990. So you're 2 feet above FEMA. My question before and is again, did FEMA take into account the Ivan flood in calculating their number?
I do not know, because the question is was Ivan considered a 100-year flood? I don't know that.
And it's the one that devastated that whole area.
It does. That you can have a 50-year flood that can devastate an area, but I don't know. I can ask.
I only bring it up because I think it would be a shame for another Ivan to come through here and have that first floor of that space flooded.
I think our floodplain ordinance is 2 feet above 100 years, isn't it, Steve?
It's 18 inches. We're 2 feet
Sure,
above.
it's not 2 feet in McCandless.
If it is, we're 2 feet. So
I think it is 2 feet. I was just saying,
Okay.
like, it sounded like you did your homework.
yeah, it's just a rule of thumb I like to use. I know a lot of municipalities, it's 18 inches. I throw in 2
there'll be
feet.
There's a 2 foot factor of safety above the 100 year.
Yeah.
They would check what Spears Storm Ivan was. And
Okay.
You might have information on that. They could check that.
Probably the difficulty will be is that how will they know how high Ivan got exactly at that location? Somebody was probably not out there measuring it, but I don't know how FEMA works. I don't know how they set their floodplains, but that was a devastated area. I know that.
It's based upon a 100-year storm event. So you can run higher storm year events in 100 year and model that in the model that they have.
RJ, could you back up to I think it's the topographic map, but it may not be able to.
Let's see what we got here.
That one's fine.
Oh, this one? All right.
That one's fine. Trying to.
It shows me that the 100-year flood breaches Blazer Drive. So before it comes to our apartment, it's going to breach Blazer Drive. So it's what those little heavy lines are showing me. So.
That's all.
Jonathan?
The deck's the only place that doesn't meet the 25-foot setback, right? Because that's all I had for now.
Greg?
No,
Kim?
No, I was trying to look up Ivan. I can't get
I think that'd be tough to translate into this particular plan.
Yeah, that'd be a pretty specific Google search.
So I had just a potential action, agenda item on there because I wasn't sure how you all would feel about the floodplain stuff. If the commission does choose to take action on this, I certainly don't want to hold up anything that's ready to move forward. I know that this is a sensitive area and definitely something that we want to look at closely, anything that's close to Pine Creek for certain, we want to take a look at closely. It's up to, the commission, what you want to do from here, whether you still want further information or want to take action. If you do take action, then we will need to vote on the modification request for the wetlands
I
buffer
would
as
imagine
well
we do
as.
the modification request first. right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. There is a modification request of number 1. Is there more than one number 1?
No, I just kind of do that for housekeeping,
Okay.
give them all numbers.
To construct an elevated deck with a 19-foot setback from adjacent wetlands, the code requirement of 25-foot setback buffer. So, we have a motion to recommend that the 19-foot setback is okay.
I'll make a motion to accept it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, sounds like that one was 4-0, correct?
That's right.
All right.
Someone has their hand up.
And that was to approve
Okay. To
The
approve.
the
modification,
modification of 19 feet instead of 25.
right, for the deck specifically.
Right, okay.
Do we have a comment from the back of the
No,
room?
we didn't
didn't follow the order that we did last time before we voted. you
Oh,
didn't
she's
follow
asking about
comments.
the, you know what, I apologize. This is our first time back in here after
No,
COVID.
I'm
Why don't
so
you, come on
sorry.
up, come on
You
up.
got it right the last time, and this time you didn't get it right. That, this is our first time back thing, doesn't wash. It doesn't.
Would you like to make a comment?
I certainly would.
Okay.
Okay, identify yourself, please.
My name is Ellen Wright, 9635 Old Coomer Road, Allison Park, PA, 15101. This FEMA map, I would look at the map that FEMA provides because it gives you a better idea of where the floodplain is. This map, it doesn't show how much the floodplain is there. So I would check the actual floodplain map from FEMA. So that would be my first comment. My second comment is that the county and the state have setbacks and they're greater than the McCandless setback is. So you want to be in line with the county and with the state with their flood setbacks. You're talking about building an apartment building and you're showing that the flood is going to go across Blazer Drive, trapping people in the building when you're talking about the Ivan flood. And when you talk about modification number 1, that's just a housekeeping thing. There aren't any other modifications. Is that what I'm hearing?
There are no requests to vary from the code to the extent that it would trigger a waiver or a modification request.
Okay. The gateway letter, is that public information?
It can be requested through right to know, yes,
Okay,
as all public documents can be.
okay. And the May minutes were posted after June 28th. And I'm just curious if they were approved at the June meeting, why the minutes were posted so late.
I'm sorry, the minutes for.
The minutes for May were posted after June 28th.
That was an oversight, but they are certainly available
Okay.
to view on the website now, as far as I'm aware.
Yes, they are, but after June 28th. And they were, when was the last planning commission meeting?
It would have been June 1st.
Yes. Okay, so those are my comments. I think it's a very serious issue that this is extending into the floodplain. And it says, oh, it's only 16 feet or 25 feet, but it doesn't align with the county or with the state. And we're talking about a floodplain. So that's my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Steve, would you like to address any of this?
Yes, I would.
I think that there's, if we are in violation of county ordinances, that they should be specifically cited. I am not aware of any county ordinances that regulate wetlands. I'm not acquainted with any state, because if you deal with the DEP, there is a 0 setback requirement for any DEP wetland items. So, and the comment that the traffic, the residents of here would be landlocked or cut off, if you would, if there is a flood cutting off Blazer Drive, is totally erroneous, because you can see they can come out of the driveway and get on McCandless Drive, get out, or they can turn around and just take the other way out of Blazer Drive. And in the presentation 2 before me, the gentleman here were talking about how that the roadway on Blazer Drive rises up 15 feet, much higher than the floodplain. So we know that that is not true, that this is going to create a health or safety hazard just because it's one of the access ways may be cut off in a once in 100-year event.
Steve, I have a procedural question for you. Because the resident did not get the opportunity to make public comment before they voted on the modification request, should they remake the motion and retake the vote?
We would request that.
Yeah, I think
We
that
would
would
request it.
procedurally be better to give the opportunity to vote again.
I would agree.
Okay,
That would be on just the modification request, yeah.
Yeah, I'll remake my modification to accept the modification request.
okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Okay. We can refer this on to the town council candidate. Are there any outstanding items that you need to look at?
I would defer
Should be
to.
based on
town
my
administrator.
letter. It should be based.
Yeah, so same as the other plans, if you do recommend that it move on, you would want to make sure it was contingent on all the technical comments being addressed.
Okay.
Our letter stated July 29th.
June?
I'm sorry, June 29th, July.
Time traveling.
Sorry.
June 29th, okay. And you have addressed his comments at this point, Steve?
Yes.
Okay. Could I have a motion then to recommend approval of this? Anyone?
Subject to the conditions.
Subject to the conditions
Gateway's letter.
of Gateway's letter. That's right.
I'll move to approve it, subject to those conditions.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. And just for clarity, Dan, what was the date of your review?
29th.
June 29th. Okay, that's what I wrote down. I just wanted to verify. Thank you very much. As we'll go to council's informal meeting or directly to the public hearing.
Yeah, so at this point, what we're doing is any of the land development and zoning matters get put on the second meeting of the month, which is the fourth Monday of each month. So, you know, we try to hold them until they get to the council stage, until most of the technical comments are addressed, so it's not kind of in the ether after the presentation's been made.
Perfect.
So, you know, I would suggest kind of the same thing as the timeline that we usually do for the planning commission, 2 full weeks to Gateway a chance to take a look at any revisions, and then we can get you on the next meeting following that.
Can do. We'll be here for the public hearing then. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 8 is approval of the June 1st, 2021 meeting minutes. Has everybody read them? And
I have.
good. Would you like to make a motion to approve them?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second by Greg.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any other general public comments?
We have a general public comment period right now. Is anybody interested in signing up for that?
Okay.
Hearing none.
All right. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.